Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the West Coast Best Coast Football Show. I'm Mike Mayer here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. Your look inside the West Coast football teams that used to make up the Pac-12. There's still two of those teams remaining in the Pac-12. They added four. I talked about that last week. But let's take a look inside the Pac-12 for this week and what transpired. Arizona lost. You can go catch the recap video. They got humiliated by Kansas State. Kansas State's really good in the Big 12, so I'm not surprised that happened. The only saving grace that I can say for Arizona is that wasn't a conference game, weirdly enough, even though it's two Big 12 teams facing each other. That's just realignment for you. So we're down to three teams from the former Pac-12 that are now ranked in the top 25. They're all ranked inside the top 12. So it's Oregon at 9, USC at 11, and Utah at 12. Nothing changed there. The only difference in the top 25 for the Pac-12, the former Pac-12, is that Arizona lost, and they're obviously out of the rankings. The big controversy, and I got to give a shout out to my guy Ryan Leaf, flag bearer for the Washington State Cougars. Enormous win for the Cougs in the Apple Cup at Lumen Field, neutral site, getting that win, especially considering Washington left them high and dry. They go up to Seattle, effectively what was a neutral site game, but still, like, it was in Seattle, which is much closer to Washington than it is Washington State. And Washington wins, but they're not ranked. And I would argue, man, Washington State's already beat Texas Tech too. They got two Power 5 wins or Power 4 wins. I got to get used to saying that. How is Washington State not ranked? I don't understand that. So, Leave, I got to give you a shout out here, man, because you're absolutely spot on that. And Washington State, I brought it up on the recap show after the win. This is setting up, potentially, for Washington State to be a potential factor in that Group of 5 discussion for that auto bid in the 12-team playoff. If they keep on winning, it's going to be really hard to ignore. And they still have Boise State to play, and Boise State's going to be one of those teams that's going to be around as well. And if they can start accumulating these wins, Washington State's going to have a potential opportunity to be up in that discussion at the end of the year. Jake Dickert's a hell of a coach. I love the people in that athletic department. It was just so great to see them get that win over Washington. So I'm a little surprised that they weren't ranked up there. So anyway, let's go through 1 through 12. I called this my 6-pack, but let's give you the bottom 6, and then we'll go up to the top 6. So bottom 6, UCLA is number 12. I was there for a half against Indiana. That was an atrocity. I feel bad for Deshaun Foster. First-time head coach gets thrown into a new conference at his alma mater, and they're significantly they're just not talented enough to measure up to the other 17 teams. They're going to win a few games this year, but man, losing 42-13 in your own house to Indiana, and Indiana's middle of the road Big Ten team, that's not a good sign. So UCLA at 12. Stanford was off last week. They're at 11. I moved Colorado from the basement up to 10. They proved me wrong. They beat Colorado State. Congratulations. You get Baylor this week. I'll talk about that game in a little bit. I really still do not have a whole hell of a lot of confidence in this Colorado team. It's Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, a couple of other guys, and just a bunch of nobodies. And Coach Prime is more focused on, getting mad at reporters for setting off narratives about Travis Hunter, and Shedeur Sanders is, not wanting to shake hands with the Colorado State quarterback, who admittedly talked a lot of shit in the build-up to that game. Still, you're the quarterback and you're the biggest representative of your program. You're going to be a potential first-round draft pick. Stop the bullshit. And this is where I think Colorado's really going to screw themselves. So I have them at 10. I moved them out of the basement because UCLA's performance was so bad. Stanford didn't play, and I just think Colorado is marginally better than Stanford, but we'll see. I got Oregon State at 9. I dropped them down a little bit. They got absolutely clobbered by Oregon. Oregon's just that good. Oregon is just that good of a football team. So they're going to make a lot of teams look bad. Oregon State, it's just like you kind of saw the talent gap. It'll be interesting to see how they measure up in this kind of like makeshift Mountain West schedule that they've got along with Washington State. They got Purdue, which is a Power 4 game this week, and this is at home, so it's going to be an opportunity for them to lock up a significant win there for them in terms of the Power 4 level, even though Purdue is like one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. So I got Oregon State at 9. I dropped Washington to 8. Washington should have won this game. They messed around at the goal line. They ran that stupid option play into the short side of the field. I don't understand it. There's still a lot of questions in terms of quarterback. You only get 19 points. They're going to have a really tough time against some of the better teams in the Big Ten. I would expect Jed Fish and his team to get a lot better, but that was definitely them losing effectively. I mean, it was, like I said, it was a neutral, but it was still in Seattle. That's a game you got to get, especially considering Washington has really owned the Apple Cup in recent years. Arizona, I dropped them all the way down to 7. That loss was alarming. It also is a reflection of who they played in Kansas State. Kansas State is just that damn good. And just by process of elimination, I kind of have to use a little bit of these records to kind of reflect of where these teams are, because everyone else in my 6-pack is still undefeated. So that's the bottom 6 of the old Pac-12. At 6, I've got Arizona State. Arizona State's got Texas Tech this week on the road, so that's going to be a tough one for them. But, man, going to Texas State, that was a tough ask for a really pesky, newer FBS team. G.J. Kinney's a really good coach. But Kenny Dillingham, man, guy's younger than me, and he's coaching and recruiting at this high of a level. He's just a boatload of energy. I freaking love that guy. So Arizona State at 6. I got Cal at 5. They go to 3-0. They've got a huge opportunity to go to Florida State this week and potentially send the Seminoles, who were undefeated last year, to 0-4. It's the tall order to go all the way across the country to Tallahassee from Berkeley. But I think Cal has a chance, and I will get into that game in a little bit here. But I got Cal at 5. I got Washington State at 4. Just a mammoth win for that program, and they've got 2 Power 4 wins already this year. I said it before, and I'll say it again. If they can navigate the schedule with 1, maybe 2 losses, there's a chance that Washington State is potentially in that mix for that group of 5 spot in the college football playoff. That's like Washington State. Like, I would not want to mess around with them. That's a pesky bunch of a team there. John Mateer is just really coming to his own as this dual threat quarterback for that team. It's really awesome to see Jake Tickert again just killing it, and he was put in a really impossible position. So I got the Cougs at 4. I got Utah staying at 3. Isaac Wilson, Isaac's brother, looked okay against Utah State. It wasn't hard. Utah State's not that good. They go to Oklahoma State this week in one of the games of the early season. Like, that is a massive spot for Utah. There's a lot of uncertainty whether or not Cam Rising will play. Utah started off as a favorite. They're now an underdog. I'm a little bit concerned here. And that's not a good spot for them to go to Stillwater and potentially play that high-powered offense at Oklahoma State, who's just been running up and down the field. Alan Bowman had a monster game against Tulsa last week. Oregon at 2, I still don't move them up. Yes, they beat Oregon State, and that's a big win against their rival, but that doesn't take away what the first 2 games that I saw were not good for them. And even though they're ranked higher than USC in the AP poll, I've got them as my second best Pac-12 team. I still think Dylan Gabriel's firmly in the mix to win the Heisman. But they've really got to show me something. They've got the bye this week. They don't play anybody, but then we're going to get knee deep into conference play and whatnot, and we'll see what they're made of in this newly formed Big Ten. And then I've got USC staying at number 1. They got a huge test going to the Big House in their Big Ten debut, a monster test for Lincoln Riley. Michigan changes quarterbacks. Miller Moss is cooking. The defense has been awesome. This is a big-time opportunity for USC to really make a statement, not just to the West Coast, to the rest of the nation, that they're not to be fucked with. And USC is back after that disappointing season last year. So, all right, let's get to these games here in Week 4. Friday night, Stanford at Syracuse. Syracuse is an 8.5-point favorite coming off a bye. I got Syracuse here. Kyle McCord, I don't know what happened. He leaves Ryan Day, and he looks like an awesome quarterback. Fran Brown's doing an awesome job at Syracuse. I love Troy Taylor. This is a really tough spot for the Cardinal. They're just not that talented. I mean, you already saw it when they played their other Power 4 opponent this year in TCU. Going to Syracuse, going to the Carrier Dome, that place is going to be lit. I would expect Syracuse to win that game pretty handily. Probably cover the spread. San Jose State going to Washington State. These are 3-0 teams. I would take Washington State to win this game, but I would expect it to be closer than 12 points. Kenny Amatalolo is done a really solid job over there at San Jose State, taking over for Brett Brennan, who went to Arizona. But yeah, I got the Cougs here. I think the Cougs should win this game. I don't know if they'll cover, but I'll take the Cougs there. Cal at Florida State. Florida State. This is how bad Florida State has been this season. They're the home team. They're only favored by 2.5. Only favored by 2.5. At least from my knowledge, DJ Uyunglele is still the starter. I don't understand why. It's been terrible this season. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to take Cal to knock off Florida State and send them to 0-4. And Justin Wilcox makes a huge, huge statement as the Bears go to 4-0 on the season in their debut season in the ACC. I'm telling you guys, I would not want to fuck around with this Cal team. Mendoza's a great quarterback. Jaden Knotts wasn't even their leading rusher, didn't really play much last week. They're still running the ball effectively. Their defense has always been strong. I would not want to fuck around with this Cal team in that ACC. And if they go to Florida State, granted, Florida State is not what they were last year. That is a statement to the ACC that, hey, this Cal team is not to be screwed around with. I already think they've made that statement. Arizona State goes to Texas Tech. I know my boy Andrew Marks is probably clamoring for this matchup. Texas Tech at home, only a 3-point favorite. Listen, I love the early start for Arizona State, but this is a tough task for them. This young group to go to Texas Tech, a really hostile environment, and potentially go out there and get a win like this. They already have a Power 4 win. They beat Mississippi State. It was at home, but this is on the road. I would say Texas Tech wins this game. Arizona State gets their first loss of the season. I still think I love the direction of Arizona State and where they are in proportion to what they were last year. They already have as many wins as they had last year, which is just a heck of a job by Kenny Dillingham. Then we've got Utah, Oklahoma State, one of the two matchups with this old Pac-12 that is going to be ranked on ranked. Utah going to Stillwater. Oklahoma State, as I mentioned, has now become the favorite in this game. Utah was the favorite. I have a ton of concern in regards to whether or not Cam Rising is going to play in this game. And if he doesn't, it was nice to see Isaac Wilson play okay. Utah State is not Oklahoma State. And Utah, they had this huge issue last year when Cam Rising wasn't there. They couldn't score. And when you play an offense like in Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy and Alan Bowman and Ollie Gordon, you have to score points. Because you can stop them, but you can't stop them all the time. They're going to put points up on the board. So I would take Oklahoma State to win this game. Frankly, regardless of whether or not Cam Rising does play, because I would think Cam Rising is going to be limited. Finger injuries don't cure themselves in a matter of weeks, so I'm a little concerned about the direction of this. I hope I'm wrong. I love Kyle Whittingham. He's always thrived on winning these games that he's doubted in. But Oklahoma State just feels like a completely different beast. So I think Utah is going to get their first loss of the season. Baylor is going to Colorado. This is an interesting game. Colorado is favored by 2. Baylor is not particularly good. I mean, they struggled against a Cam Rising-less team for about the Utah team that was there for about a half. I just trust Dave Aranda in terms of that defense that he's going to rattle Shedeur Sanders to a point where when he is rattled, this team is not good. Like, Shedeur needs to be kept clean. He needs to have time so he can complete passes to guys like Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and some of these other guys that they have on their roster. And if that's not happening, then they can't run the ball. They don't play good enough defense. So you know what? I'll take Baylor to win this game. And it's a demoralizing defeat for Colorado. It just feels like that Colorado State win was a lot of fool's gold. I was kind of fooled into believing that Colorado State, for all the chirping and all the stuff, and they were mad about last year, and it was at home, that I thought they were going to win. I was wrong about that. But I also think that gives a false sense of reality to Deion Sanders and his Colorado group, that thinking that they're going to be just like this big heavyweight in the Big 12. They should win this game because Baylor is near the bottom of that Big 12. But I could totally see Baylor walking in there, considering just how incredible of a defensive mind Dave Aranda is, and he will find ways to rattle Shedeur Sanders. And if you can rattle that quarterback, that takes away the whole operation, because that's the only thing. Him and Travis Hunter are like the only two really good, superior things on this football team. The rest of it is just mid to terrible. So there you go. Maybe like one of the biggest games, like obviously Utah and Oklahoma State, but also the big CBS game, because now we have to get used to hearing the CBS theme and it not being SEC football. USC is going to Michigan, number 11 USC, going to Michigan, the big house. Michigan's already got a loss to Texas. USC favored by 5 on the road coming off of a bye. I got the Trojans here, man. Like, I saw almost every single game, at least in person at home, for USC. And in a large chunk of those home games for USC, they looked overwhelmed. Caleb Williams was running for his life. There was no protection. The weapons were not great. The defense couldn't stop anybody. And this year, it looks like a completely different team. And it looks like that one decision to get rid of Alex Grinch and bring in D'Anton Lynn from UCLA over to USC has completely changed the dynamics of this entire team. It's allowed Lincoln Riley to coach offense and coach a little bit more freely and with a lot more confidence, rather than, hey, man, let's just have Caleb save our bacon the entire time. But yeah, Miller Moss has been doing the job. They've been making plays. That huge win against LSU in what was effectively, even though it was in Vegas, that was a road game. There were more LSU people there. It's going to be tough for them to go into the big house, but you guys saw the same game I did against Texas. Michigan just is completely a different team from what they were. They're making the quarterback changes to Alex Orji. Insert your jokes. It's spelled O-R-J-I. You filthy animals over there trying to make some jokes about that. But he's now the quarterback after Davis Warren threw 3 picks against Arkansas State. Quarterback is an issue. They still have Donovan Edwards. They still have some pieces on defense, so this could be a competitive game. But yeah, I got USC winning. They may not cover, but I think USC is going to go to the big house. And frankly, Michigan's not very good, so I could honestly see this being a close game. I just don't see a scenario where Michigan wins this game. So it's either going to be a close game or USC is just going to annihilate them physically and like emotionally and just psychologically. They're just gonna take that it's not going to be on the same level of what happened with Texas, because Texas is best team in America, but USC is better. They should win, but I would not be surprised if Michigan found a way to keep this thing close. Speaking of a game that's not going to be close, UCLA goes to LSU. LSU narrowly escapes South Carolina. We already talked LSU. Ironically, LSU playing both Southern California teams within the span of a month is insane to me. LSU in Baton Rouge is a 23.5-point favorite over UCLA. I don't even think it's going to be that close. I think LSU is going to just absolutely murder UCLA. I saw this UCLA team at the Rose Bowl against Indiana for a half. Indiana is a middle of the road at best Big Ten team. LSU is supposed to be contending for the SEC championship. Granted, you wouldn't be able to tell that considering they almost lost to South Carolina last week. South Carolina's all right, but they're not great. But LSU's the superior team talent-wise, like all due respect, coaching-wise. Like I just think Deshaun Foster, like this is not going to be an easy year for him, and I feel bad for him because I loved watching him play. He lives, breathes, eats UCLA Bruins. But he got thrown into an impossible situation, just getting hired in February. They're going to a new conference. He's never been a head coach. It's just a disaster. So I would expect LSU to absolutely destroy UCLA. And then the late game on the CW, I'm not sure if it's my guy Ryan Leaf or my guy Max Brown calling this game, but Purdue goes to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. Oregon State a 4.5-point favorite coming off that loss to Oregon. Purdue lost 66-7 at home to Notre Dame. Purdue's not good. This just in. Purdue's not good. This should be actually a competitive game. I'm not sure if Oregon State covers the 4.5, but Oregon State will win. Corvallis is a really hard place to play for people who haven't been there, and for Purdue to go cross country to do that, it's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough task for them to go to Corvallis and win that game. So I got Oregon State winning that. So that's the West Coast Best Coast football show here, talking about the the former Pac-12 and leading into the new Pac-12, talking about the best in the West Coast football. It's going to be a great weekend. A lot of great content, NFL, you name it, all sorts of sports. Also wrestling, if you're fans of that. We got a lot of great content there. We'll be having a lot of that throughout the week and into the weekend. So enjoy college football, enjoy NFL. We will talk to you guys really, really, really soon.